War of words in Parliament over APEC spending.
Sometimes learn to listen.
NEC to endorse change in LLG Polls date. And IRC sees results of better capacity and compliance.
This is the National MTV News with Helen Sayer.
Good evening, this is Thursday's news and thanks for joining us. To Parliament first, and a heated argument over the potential benefits of hosting the APEC Leaders Summit erupted on the floor of Parliament today. The initial question raised by Moresby Northwest MP Sir Makere Marauta and directed to Prime Minister led to a war of words between Mr O'Neill and members of the opposition.
Another example is the Porena Highway.
Sir Makere described the government's spending towards the hosting of the 2018 APEC Leaders Summit as ridiculous, while specifically highlighting the oil surge taxation scheme on the construction of the APEC House in Port Moresby.
The immediate, medium-term and the long-term benefits stored in APEC to be unleashed beginning in November. Prime Minister, APEC is being portrayed also as a king tide of prosperity that will float the nation to higher planes of social and economic development and status. Just be patient so you can hear your answers that you are demanding,
In response, the Prime Minister said the event would bring economic world leaders to Papua New Guinea, giving PNG businesses a chance to market their products and engage with these economies.
He has been representing our country in those meetings for many years, and he knows the value of APEC.
He was interrupted through a point of order by Sir Makere on his participation in previous APEC summits.
Never did I witness the psyche of a nation.
The interruption prompted the Prime Minister to speak of how he does not interrupt other members of Parliament when they are asking or answering a question.
Most of the leaders, Mr. Speaker, if the member from Medan can keep his big mouth shut, I will answer it, Just a loud mouth, that's what you are, Mr. Speaker. In fact, a moron of the first degree.
The chambers then erupted with points of orders raised by Sinesine Yangumul MP and the opposition leader, both asking the PM to answer the original question.
You maintain, resume your seat, please. Resume your seat. The chair hasn't given you the honorable member for Sinesine Yangumul. May you resume your seat.
Northwest is asking for the benefits that are going to be accrued to APEC.
Order. Allow the Prime Minister to answer the questions.
I think it's important that some of the older members of Parliament should teach some of the newcomers the decorum of the parliamentary process. Mr. Speaker, and the way the Senate member sets an example for his member sitting beside him is a character of the debate that is being conducted on this floor of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I do not interject while you speak, Mr. Speaker. I do not make stupid noises while you speak. Sometimes learn to listen, Mr. Speaker.
When the shouting subsided, the PM answered the question, stating that the government is cost-conscious and has spent under 2 million kina in 2017 and will be spending less than 300 million kina this year to host the event. Thekla Gunga, National MTV News.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill says the Cabinet will endorse the conduct of the LLG elections for April 2019. O'Neill made this announcement in Parliament when responding to Enga Governor Peter Ipatas on the series of questions on the LLG elections.
The Enga governor asked 2 questions on the LLG elections. The first on whether the elections will proceed and the other on the outstanding allowances owed to the LLG presidents.
I just want to ask the Prime Minister if he can tell the nation
if the elections will proceed, the local level government elections will proceed as planned next month, or will be deferred. Secondly, can the Prime Minister give some assurance that all the outstanding allowances that are due to the councillors can be paid before they go to the elections?
The Prime Minister's response was clear. The Cabinet will endorse the conduct of the LLG elections for 2019 through a submission in Parliament, and the government has committed 70 million kina for this.
In view of the request by many provincial governments and many of the LLGs throughout the country, I have directed the Minister and his department to go back and seek legal advice. Legal advice comes back that, and of course, considering the discussions that we have had with the Electoral Commissioner, they've put it in writing to government that we can be able to defer the elections further. We will use the 100 million kina that we have budgeted for the elections to pay off all the councillors' outstanding debt, outstanding allowance, so that we don't owe anybody any claims whatsoever as we conduct the elections.
The LLG elections are normally conducted after the national elections. However, because of limited funds and other issues in the Intergovernment Relations Department, the elections have been pushed forward to 2018 and now to 2019.
A cabinet needs to approve, and I think it gives us all time to manage this process quite easily, so that we can settle the councillors and their anxiety, and we will be able to conduct the elections in a fair and free manner.
Thekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
By the end of June 2018, the country's tax collector collected 3.36 billion in taxes. This figure slightly higher than the 2018 national budget target. The Internal Revenue Commission announced this today, saying the success in surpassing its targets due to several factors, including improved administrative and processing capacity and increasing taxpayer compliance.
In a media release today, the Internal Revenue Commission announced their total collection to the end of June 2018. The IRC revealed that in total, 3.36 billion kina was collected from various taxes. This figure surpassing the 2018 budget half-year target of 3.35 billion kina. According to the IRC, tax collections fared strongly from corporate income taxes and a resurgence of mining and petroleum taxes. The IRC has also noted an increase in taxpayer compliance, which is attributed to self-assessment, improved processing capacity within the IRC, and compliance initiatives through cooperation with commercial banks, outreach programs, and spot check activities, including media awareness about tax filing and payment obligations. Whilst collections have been strong, the IRC is also urging taxpayers with outstanding tax debts facing difficulties in paying the taxes to make contact and discuss installment payment options, adding that the IRC is open to facilitate tax installment payment options. With the positive results from the first 6 months of this year, the IRC is confident that it can meet the full-year target of 7.39 billion kina, which represents 65% of the total revenue in the 2018 national budget. Merabatulo, National EMTV News.
Whilst the IRC announces total half-year tax revenue collection, the Public Employees Association has voiced its concerns on the current taxation regimes. Speaking in Port Moresby this afternoon, PEA President Robert Kutapai sounded the union's concerns on the current marginal tax rate of 35%, which he said was too high for public servants. The PEA has therefore called on the national government to review the tax rates to make it fairer.
On top of the 35%, there are certain percentage on top of that 35%, which is killing our public servants. And most of my executives from especially the outer regions express their concerns that the government should look into the tax laws, especially governing the salaries and wages tax. And apart from that, they also stress the importance of looking at other benefits that are also taxed, like retirement, retrenchment, resignation. All those calculations have been taxed. And some of our members are saying that tax should be reduced. And it is a serious concern that the government must look into now. And in order to have a better public service mechanism to deliver your medium-term development goals or strategies and policies that the government is doing, it's the public service that will deliver. And therefore, their cry is that the tax must be reduced.
The Public Employees Association is calling on the government to seriously look into some issues which they say have been affecting the performance of public servants. Speaking in Port Moresby today, PEA President Kutapai said the PEA remained open to discussions with the national government, however remained adamant that industrial action would also be considered if the government did not address its concerns.
Speaking on the sidelines of their National Executive Council meeting today, PEA President Robert Kutapai made known some of the issues discussed by the NEC. Much of these issues relating to issues that have been raised by the PEA in the past, which he says have not received much attention from government.
The long outstanding Nonga Base Hospital, these are our members affected by the volcanic dust up in Rabaul. And this case has been a long, outstanding case. We need to have our fire service capabilities looked at so that they can be better able to address the capabilities at the APEC. These members are still waiting for their retrenchment payout. Some of the members, it's between DPM and the Western Islands Provincial Government to address.
Among issues discussed, issues concerning staff of Nonga Hospital in East New Britain, the need to increase the capacity of the PNG Fire Service, and outstanding payments owed to former staff of the Western Highlands Provincial Government.
The concern for our public servants who are exceeding the public service mechanism, some of them have loyalty served the government, and why not the employer component is not being paid by the state. And there's about 2.1 billion outstanding, so is the current exceeding about 500 million, and it's still continuing.
The PEA president also spoke on the need for government to address the outstanding employer superannuation contributions. According to the PEA, they remain open to dialogue with the national government, but will also continue to raise these issues until they are addressed.
We are also pushing for these agendas through the COPSO, which is made up of the other public sector unions. It's the Council of Public Sector Unions, the teachers, nurses, doctors, CIS, police. They all make up the COPSO in which PA is the chair. So some of our issues that are brought up here will also be highlighted as a collective bargaining power which will be under the COPSO heading.
Merabatulo, National EMTV News.
You're at National EMTV News. More of today's other stories when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Lands Minister Justin Tichenko today announced Oswald Tolopa as the new acting secretary for the Department of Lands. Tichenko says this change has come about after former Secretary for Lands Luther Sipison was charged with 12 counts of charges relating to land title issues. Sipison was removed of his title effective yesterday.
Today, Lands Minister Justin Tichenko told the media that the investigations into the misappropriation of office by former Secretary Luther Sipison had been initiated before his time and now as the Lands Minister. Investigations into the former Secretary on allegations of misconduct in the Lands Department was carried out by the Ombudsman Commission and Department of Personnel Management. Following the inquiries, Sipison was charged with 12 counts relating to mismanagement of office and land title arrangements.
This has caused great difficulty in our department. For the last 4 months, the department has not been operating properly under the Secretary Luther Sipison's management. He went about illegally suspending and removing departmental senior officers, which was against what I originally told him. He went around destabilising the department to put his own cronies inside this department for his own personal greed and gain.
He says over the last 4 months, office staff and the department were not able to carry out their duties well because of such issues that were withholding services to ordinary Papua New Guineans to access and follow correct procedures.
So I look forward once again in working with Oswald Tolopa, the new acting secretary appointed by Cabinet, to ensure stability and proper governance and accountability of this department is upheld to the highest level without fear or favour.
I believe at this time is just a continuation of what we have started, and I say thank you for the confidence and that the Honourable Able Government has given me through the NEC, and of course for Minister for his support. And really what I believe in is just for this organization to be fully operational. And what it takes for this department to be fully operational is just for us to work together. And leadership is one key area in which just to lead and ensure that there is a conducive environment for full operational of every divisional heads doing their job.
Tachenko says one of the serious allegations against the former secretary was the awarding of portions of land to himself. Sipison, who responded to these allegations, has been given the opportunity to respond to the charges and follow proper procedures. Minister Tachenko says time will not be wasted and he wants to see these allegations come to a conclusion.
This department is not about Justin Tachenko or Luther Sipison or Oswald Tolopa. This department is about getting on with the job and reforming the department, changing the perception and making it a better place for you to get services when it comes to land issues in our country. We have so much work to do.
Godwin Eki, National EMTV News.
Police Commissioner Gary Baki is urging police in Madang to do their job to the best of their ability despite limited support given to them. Baki says it also goes back to show how policemen and women do their work as well, saying having resources is one thing. However, there are other activities that do not require many resources.
Country. I can't give priorities to Madang and tell Madang takes a priority in this and I forget about the other. The issues that in terms of our police operations is dictated by the source of funding that's given to us by government to do our job. And what is being given to us, if it's limited in a sense, we try as much as possible to see that police do their operations to the best in what they can do. I mean, in having to solicit the support of even our local politicians as well to support in what we are doing. Having said that, that does not mean that it's a complete. You just overlook Madang for the purpose of saying that there is an increase in law and order simply because the police cannot do their job. I think it goes also to show that there's got to be a lot of commitment in the way policemen and women do their work as well. As a continued process in terms of for our police work and responsibilities, that whether we have resources or we don't have resources, we are police officers, we have to still do our work.
The newly renovated Pacifica Women Network Trade Center opened its doors for female entrepreneurs this morning. Located inside the steamship's compound in Waigani, the establishment was previously called the Women in Business Trade Center.
The Trade Center is the brainchild of businesswoman Ruth Undi, who passionately addressed the event guests. She opened the center with the aim of creating a business platform connecting trade within the region. And while the hallmark of a marketplace is competition, collaboration is also vital.
Become one day this idea of Pacific and nail to it. No, inside of this country, planeta units of the grassroots mama tasol. Me like creating this platform, me like bringing grassroots mama and a business mary and a sour mary inside of this country. Together, you must work one thing. Envision blow me. why MIPIN starting this Pacifica Women Network.
The Small to Medium Enterprise Corporation, represented by Michael Mell, pledged 50,000 kina to the center, describing it as a great way for women to work together towards economic empowerment.
SME Corporation put him 50,000. 50,000 next week or something, I'll make sure that I'll deliver a check here so that 30,000 people give more. Or Mount Plugin at 20,000 and meeting Legal Corporation cost play.
Leanne Jarari, National MTV News.
Women in agriculture in the Highlands region are taking the lead in their farming communities to see an improvement in their livelihoods. The European Development Fund's Program Director Roger Kara said the Rural Economic Development Project has not only taught them innovations to improve their farming culture, it has also empowered women to take up leadership roles in these areas.
More than 10,000 farmer groups have been impacted through the Rural Economic Development Project in the Highlands region. This is according to the European Development Fund's Program Director Roger Kara. Mr. Kara said throughout the region, women have taken on leadership roles in heading the farmer resource centres.
We've seen in the farming communities, women tend to have taken over the role of taking leadership in organizing, in mobilizing people, in seeking support, in also farm demonstrations. And all.
Margaret Kawa is in charge of the Farmer Resource Centre in Yalibu and is also the Women in Agriculture President.
Mipla Mama is Sudan, 5 Mama, and 5 LLG districts, Mipla Sudan, organizing this women in agriculture, Southern Highlands women in agriculture. So now I'm looking was through Nari, she's ready to program and come inside.
Out of the 4 farmer resource centres launched last week in the Highlands region, 3 are headed by women. They echo the stories of wanting to improve the lives of women, children and others in the community through agriculture. This is the case with Minj Farmer Resource Centre Manager Agnes Merepkal.
Yes, me looking the place mama all struggle through now. No got savol grow all kind of kumu some log salim naksi money. Not do you think only no read red line.
Mr. Kara says it's been overwhelming seeing that the project not only helped communities in agriculture but has also empowered women in leadership.
The challenges we are given these women is to continue to stand fast on these roles and the leadership qualities that they have, and to ensure that they continue, putting on that kind of impact that we have.
Lucy Kopana, National MTV News.
You're with Thursday's News. We check stories making headlines overseas after these messages. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the news. Turning overseas, grief in Greece is laced with anger. Many now asking how so many scattered fires broke out at the same time. At least 81 people died when flames fueled by gale-forced winds raced down a hill to a seaside community.
It ravaged anything in its path. Swathes of the Greek hillside erased, and with it, the lives it struck. Hope, too, is dying here. The family of 88-year-old Angeliki Yiannopoulou have just heard the worst, that she was the 80th person killed by the wildfires. Her charred remains were discovered in her home. For her son Nikos, a mix of shock and rage.
I will prosecute to all levels everybody that is responsible for this catastrophe. I will not stop until I will die.
It's still not known how the spark was lit, but the gale-force winds meant the flames galloped down the mountains. Dozens are still missing, and almost 200 were injured. Like Susan Stefos from Britain. Minutes after seeing the flames in the distance, they were at her home. She ran through them, burning her arms. It's hard to find words for such a tragedy.
When I was in the house and the fire was going over, I thought I'm not going to make it. This is the end. But prayers were answered.
The streets of Mati are like a burnt-out ghost town. The scorched shells are all that remain of family homes. Some still bear the trace of the inferno.
On the water.
Volunteer lifeguards scour the coast for any sign of life or death. Hundreds of people were rescued as they ran into the sea to escape the flames. The hope of finding any more survivors has virtually gone, so the aim now is to look for belongings and bodies. For some, the sea marked their salvation from the flames. For others, it was the end.
A cricketing legend is on the verge of leading Pakistan's more than 200 million strong population. Former all-rounder Imran Khan is increasingly likely to win an election marred by deadly violence and claims of fraud.
Imran Khan is best known in New Zealand for his cricketing performance. Now he's on the cusp of continuing that winning streak in Pakistan's election. His popularity surging after campaigning to boost security and tackle corruption. In Pakistan, political assassinations are not uncommon. Mr. Khan telling TVNZ in 2009 he knows all too well of the dangers.
Overcame the fear of death. Because if you are scared of dying, you don't go into Pakistani politics.
That fear becoming a reality for voters turning out today. 31 people killed in a bomb attack at a polling station with ISIS claiming responsibility.
Most people started running. After 10 minutes, when the chaos was over, we started picking up the injured.
About 370,000 soldiers guarded polling stations across the country to prevent attacks, but that's just fuel claims of meddling by the army because Imran Khan enjoys their key support.
We reject this result totally. We totally rebuff it.
His main opponent is the brother of Pakistan's former Prime Minister, who was kicked out of office for hiding money in overseas accounts.
We do not accept this result. By God, I'm a very peace-loving person. I'm a person who wants to move ahead. If I'm saying this, then you can understand what blatant rigging is taking place at the polling station.
Pakistan's army denies interference, and the Electoral Commission says it's investigating. But whatever the result of the election tonight, experts say little will change for voters. The military has been the nation's de facto ruler for its 71-year life.
New footage of Demi Lovato has emerged showing the singer appearing to struggle at one of her concerts just days before a suspected overdose. There are also fresh details about a potential life-saving drug administered to the 25-year-old right before she was rushed to hospital.
Demi Lovato is reportedly in stable condition tonight, recovering in a Los Angeles hospital after a suspected drug overdose. Sources tell ABC News the medication Narcan was used on the scene to treat the 25-year-old found unresponsive in her home Tuesday morning.
EMS 11, respond with engine 97 already on scene, unconscious.
Narcan, or naloxone, can work within minutes to reverse the effects of an opioid overdose if it's administered quickly enough. It's not known just what drug or drugs were involved in this incident, but Lovato has openly discussed her battles with OxyContin, cocaine, and alcohol, publicly celebrating 6 years of sobriety in March. Warning signs of relapse were perhaps evident to fans on Sunday at her last performance, the superstar stumbling over the words of her new single, Sober.
I forgot the words.
The singer has frequently used her voice to encourage others struggling to seek treatment.
One of the reasons why I've stayed sober is because I want people to know that it is possible for you to get help and to recover.
Scientists have discovered another indicator that there could be life on planet Mars. There's a giant lake of water buried deep beneath the surface.
It's been called a work beyond any power of imagination, a priceless great, a masterpiece. But Facebook says the descent from the cross is indecent.
Come on, really? No.
Well, they're art.
It's not like porn, or it's just not offensive.
Despite being 400 years old and crafted by Baroque master Peter Paul Rubens, these paintings were removed from the site.
Lustig, sensueel.
Lustful, sensual, meant to touch people. They were a part of an ad for the Flemish Tourist Board.
Apologies for the technical error. Moving on, the New Zealand acting Prime Minister is accusing Australia of another act of thievery. This time it's the design of the New Zealand flag. He's made global headlines by accusing the Aussies of changing their flag because they copied New Zealand's flag.
Winston Peters has gone global.
And they should actually change their flag and honour the fact that we got there first.
Doubling down, picking another fight with Australia, this time accusing them of theft.
It was our design, and decades later, they took it.
Adding their flag to this list.
Farlap, Pavlova,
Russell Crowe?
The highest, Russell Crowe.
But a flag expert is questioning whether Peters has got it right.
If anything, it can be convincingly argued that we actually got the idea of a Southern Cross from Australia.
This has been New Zealand's official flag since 1901, but the Australians didn't adopt this as their official flag until the 1950s. It's murky as to who got there first, though, because both designs have been around for much longer than that.
They actually fail the test of a good flag. If you're looking at the flag from a distance on water, you can't actually tell the two apart.
It's not the first time the similarity has sparked a call for change. In fact, it was one of the top reasons behind John Key's flag referendum.
They are talking about me and actually behind me and over my shoulder. They don't even try and take the mickey. They've got me in front of an Australian flag.
Australia's already had the flag debate a number of times too, most recently at the beginning of the year when this flag was offered up as an alternative. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull ruled it out.
I don't think the Australian flag will ever be changed.
The Australian flag isn't the only thing Peters doesn't like. He's offering up an alternative anthem too.
There was a better song that they had, which was an anthem to the tune of Waltzing Matilda.
But then he doesn't like ours all that much either.
I judge the national anthem on the basis that you sing it when you're feeling great, and I don't see people doing that.
So all the Aussies need to do to keep Winston Peters happy is change their flag, their anthem, and perhaps concede the Pavlova debate.
Now back to our earlier stories. Scientists have discovered another indicator that there could be life on planet Mars. There's a giant lake of water buried deep beneath the surface.
For centuries, we've been fascinated by the prospect of life on the little red planet closest to ours. A landscape not too dissimilar to Earth's, teasing the possibility of Martian neighbours. Space missions in the 70s found signs water had once existed, dried up riverbeds and frozen poles, but never, until now, actual water.
We have found liquid water on the subsurface of Mars.
An anti-climatic announcement perhaps, but the culmination of 13 years' work. That's how long the Mars Express probe has been orbiting the red planet, bouncing radar signals off the surface to see what may lie beneath. 1 mile below the ice of the southern pole, this is what they found. Can you see it? Scientists say this white smudge is proof of a 12-mile wide lake.
It's liquid and is salty and is in contact with rocks. I mean, there are all the ingredients for thinking that life can be there.
So how excited should we be?
We can't say for sure there's life on Mars, but we do know that every time we found liquid water here on Earth, we have found life. And that's at the bottom of oceans. It's in really extreme salty conditions. And so if we extrapolate it to other planets, other moons, the possibility is there.
More research will be needed to back up these findings, but the prospect of a hidden lake gives future projects somewhere to focus. In 2 years' time, Europe's first Mars probe will be boring 2 metres into the planet's surface. But to explore a mile below the ice and answer whether we're really alone in our solar system, they're going to need a much bigger drill.
Art lovers say its bare face-cheek images of paintings by one of Europe's most influential artists have been pulled from Facebook by censors who deem them adult content, and that's resulted in a face-off between Flanders and Facebook.
It's been called a work beyond any power of imagination, a priceless great, a masterpiece. But Facebook says the descent from the cross is indecent.
Come on, really?
No.
Well, they're art. It's not like porn, or it's just not offensive.
Despite being 400 years old and crafted by Baroque master Peter Paul Rubens, these paintings were removed from the site.
Lustful, sensual, meant to touch people.
They were a part of an ad for the Flemish Tourist Board, but Facebook says when it comes to advertising, any nudity, even artistic or educational, isn't allowed unless it's a statue.
It is incomprehensible. It's not consistent. According to my sources, it is less strict for sculpture. It's ill-considered and unfortunate.
And it makes it tough for them to promote their galleries. But seeing the funny side, they produce the satire.
Do you have a social media account, madam? Yes. You do have it. We have to take you away from the nudity paintings. We need to protect you against nudity, even if artistic in nature. I'm sorry, but it's our policy, sir. Could we put you here in front of this painting?
The board sending what some may call a cheeky open letter to Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg.
If Peter Paul Rubens had created a Facebook account in his lifetime, he would have an extraordinary number of people following his fan page. Are you willing to help us think of a solution to this problem? That way, everyone in the world can marvel at the magnificent brushstrokes made by Rubens.
Just loosen up a little bit.
It's art. It's not...
Yeah.
I mean, it's not anything... It's a form of art. It's like history.
Facebook executives have agreed to a meeting to try to settle the dispute. Art lovers now hoping Pressing the Flesh can return these masterpieces to the hallowed halls of our news feeds.
Stay tuned for Trukai Sports coming up next.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. After round 16 of the PNG National Rugby League competition, the Enga Meoks lead the competition points ladder on 24 points. Followed closely behind is the Egma Gores on 23 points, while Wagitumbe sit in third place. Defending premiers Snacks Tigers are in fourth place with the Wigmen in fifth. The Lahanis, Vipers, Muruks, Isos and Warriors make up the bottom five respectively. Teams are preparing for the round 17 matches to be held in Wabeg, Mendi and Port Moresby. The One Papua Warriors have gone on to win the London Nines tournament. The Warriors remained undefeated throughout their campaign, beating Spartans 12 points to 4 in the finals to claim the inaugural London Nines trophy.
The One Papua Warriors were able to send 4 players to participate in the Nines tournament and join forces with New Zealand and Australian players from the local Wests Warriors Club in London. The team was hosted by the chairman of the United Liberation Movement for West Papua, Benny Wenda, in Oxford during the tournament. Their victory will help to raise more awareness about the situation in West Papua. The more tournaments they participate in and the more wins they get will attract many people around the world to follow and help in their campaign to spread the message, Free West Papua. This is the first tournament the Warriors have competed in this year, and they will be preparing to take part in the Kokomo Nines in Brisbane, Australia in September. They went on to win the Kokomo Nines tournament last year and will be returning to defend their title. The team, led by Captain Talakami, will also be returning next year to Serbia to defend their Nines title. Elijah Levet, National EMTV Sports.
To cricket, and day 2 of the Hebo Shield in Port Moresby saw competition leaders Cassowaries bringing in mixed results today. Their morning fixture did not go as expected when the Mariners registered a comfortable 7-wicket victory over them. Their luck returned in the afternoon match where they gave Black Bass a 3-wicket beating to maintain the top spot in this 4-team competition. The tournament continues tomorrow with the Mariners taking on the Mudmen in the morning match and then Black Bass in the afternoon. Trukai Sports continues with more after these messages. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. While 2 All Blacks miss out for the hosts, the Hurricanes welcome one back into the fold with R.D. Savea returning from injury to take a spot on the bench. He's the only change Chris Boyd has made to a Hurricane side that beat the Chiefs last weekend. But the Crusaders are another story entirely.
At one stage, Chris Boyd may have worried he'd be without his star number 7 for the entire playoffs. But as has been the case a few times this season, the Hurricanes' rehab machine has worked its magic.
He's managed to be able to get back into training a bit quicker than we thought he might have been.
Initially bracketed on the bench alongside Reid Prinsep, barring any bad luck, One News understands Savia will wear the number 20 jersey. He's been out of action since picking up an ankle injury in the All Blacks June series against France, but didn't appear to be carrying any rust in today's training. Elsewhere, Boyd has stuck with the same team from last weekend's quarter-final win against the Chiefs. Jordie Barrett holds on to the 13 jersey alongside Nani Laumape, with a seal of approval from fullback Nehemiah Scudder.
With players like him, the more times he has ball in hand, the more damage he can do. So I guess being a little bit closer in, I guess it allows guys that are outside him to get a bit of space.
While there may be comfort in not having to make too many changes, the Hurricanes are fully aware of the task at hand. The Crusaders have never lost a home semi-final, and the Hurricanes have never in fact beaten the Crusaders in a playoff match.
We're not going to go down there to make up the numbers, we're going to go down there to try and win. But it's not going to be an easy task, but that's what we're going to try and do.
For Boyd, Brad Shields, Julian Savia and others, it could be their final New Zealand swan song as they head overseas after this campaign. Weather permitting, the Hurricanes will no doubt try and replicate their 2016 round-robin performance, where they ran out 35-10 winners in the Crusaders' backyard, on the way to their maiden title.
Former heavyweight boxing champion Joseph Parker is adamant he's reinvented himself ahead of Sunday's make-or-break fight against Dillian Whyte. No more Mr. Nice Guy, he's apparently now Big Bad Joe Parker.
A food court turned into a fighter's stage. No shopping for Joseph Parker today, but plenty of selfies.
It's pretty crazy, knowing that we're fighting here, but then obviously coming in, there's a lot of support, as you can see from everyone here.
This is the first time many in the boxing world have seen Joseph Parker since his loss to Anthony Joshua back at Easter, and many of those ringside are saying they've noticed a difference.
That difference, aggression.
A loss might have done him a massive favour. The loss might have changed his psyche, his mentality toward the fight game. The loss has made him into the hunter instead of the hunted.
Joe Parker says his first career loss has made him hungry for a win.
I feel more aggressive. I feel like I'm punching with bad intentions, and usually I want to have a good fight, clean fight, and do well. Now I want to knock people out, so that's what I'm aiming to do.
And that's what he needs to do.
This fight is much more important, I know it sounds strange, much more important than the Joshua fight. Because that was a bit of a no-lose for Parker. I know you guys were behind him, but it was always like, is he really going to win? This is like, he must win, or it's over.
But risky is Parker's game plan. Whether it pays off for the Kiwi being dubbed the more technical and faster fighter will be known on Sunday.
To New Zealand football now, and the assistant coach of the New Zealand football Ferns appears to have distanced himself from the tactics of controversial coach Andreas Raff. Gareth Turnbull is about to lead the New Zealand women under-20 team to the World Cup. He's promising they will play a style that's in direct contrast to the one New Zealand football's technical director wants to see.
Gareth Turnbull's a football coach on the rise.
If you can, go boom, straight into a winger.
A football Ferns assistant who's been earmarked for the top job, but Turnbull's football philosophy is at odds with the man who's ultimately in charge.
We want to play an expressive, expansive style of football and be brave and take it to some of the best teams in the world.
Turnbull's comments about his under-20 World Cup squad couldn't be further from Andreas Raff's after the football Ferns faced Japan in June.
We will never have that quality to compete with Japan and even be better than Japan.
But Turnbull believes this side does. His under-20 group includes 7 players who recently turned out for the national team.
He's awesome. He guides us, just lets us know what we need to work on and how we can improve to be the best team.
New Zealand football's currently investigating the culture of the football Ferns, including allegations of bullying and intimidation.
Yeah, for sure there's been some challenging times over the last few weeks, but it's given myself in particular and our staff an opportunity to kind of galvanise.
Turnbull adamant the off-field drama hasn't affected this group's preparations for the World Cup.
As you can hear, the girls seem to be enjoying themselves, so it's a pretty happy group and it's a great group to be working with.
A feeling not recently experienced in the top team, Turnbull's positive influence could be a key to turning that around.
And that ends Trukai Sports. Up next, the weather details for the next 24 hours.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
Looking at the weather forecast for this afternoon and tonight in the southern region, mostly fine in Port Moresby, in Daru and Alotau. In the Momase region, mostly cloudy in Lae, while Medang, Wewak and Vanimo. In the New Guinea Islands region, mostly fine in Kavieng. And in the Highlands region, scattered morning fog clearing into afternoon showers developing in Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabag.
Were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
And before we close, here's a recap of our main stories. War of words in Parliament today over APEC spending, NEC to endorse change in LLG Polls date, and Internal Revenue Commission sees results of better capacity and compliance. And that's been the news, sport and weather for tonight, Thursday, 26th of July 2018. On behalf of the entire EMTV news team, pleasant viewing and good night.